Welcome to Texas 2.5. It is the middle of February in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it has been cold the last couple of weeks. But we're about to shake off the winter doldrums with something awesome. 49-day dry-aged prime rib roast, bone in, a big old 13-pounder, and a 12-pound 49-day dry-aged New York strip roast. We're going to be making a 3-part series of videos. The first one will show you how I did the dry aging. The second one will be a comparison head-to-head of the dry-aged New York strip versus ribeye steaks. And the third one will be a head-to-head comparison of the New York strip versus dry-aged prime rib roasts. It's going to be awesome and delicious. Y'all check it out. We started these 2 roasts, the prime rib and the New York strip, 7 weeks ago today. I thought I was only going to go 28, maybe 35 days with these. The problem is I've been so busy the last few weeks and it's been so cold that I just decided to let them keep going in the fridge. So they've gone from December 21, the Saturday before Christmas, to right now it is Saturday, I believe the date is February the 9th, 8th or 9th. Anyways, 7 weeks ago we put these babies in the fridge in our Umai bags, and I'll show you how we did all that here on today's video. Again, today's video is just going to show the process of getting the steaks in the dry-aged Umai bags, getting them in the fridge, and just showing you how they progress over those 7 weeks. I'll weigh them to show you the weight loss that's happened over these 7 weeks as well. And then we'll cut into one and just show you what the inside looks like. Then I'll make another couple of videos after this comparing the steaks head-to-head, the New York strip steaks versus the ribeye steaks. And then I'll make another video also comparing them being cooked as roasts. I'll do a prime rib roast. I'll probably do a 2 or 3 bone section of that and an equivalent section off of the New York strip roast. And we'll just compare them head-to-head. Check it out. All right, so what we're going to do here first is take our little cleaning mixture of white vinegar and water. It's about 1/3 white vinegar and about 2/3 water. And we're going to disinfect our counter where I've had these bags, and we're going to disinfect the bags themselves as well. And I'm going to be very liberal with this solution. I'm going to get it all over the place, and then I'll come back and dry it up in a minute. All right, now that I've completely drenched these in vinegar and then dried them off again, I'm just going to let them sit for a few minutes and just make sure the rest of that solution evaporates so that I have a completely clean and dry bag to work with on both of these. Normally I wouldn't show you this much tedium in a video, but the reason I am is because it's very important that you're working with a bacteria-free bag and a dry bag, and I'll show you why here in a minute once we get into these and start transferring them to our Umai dry aging bags. So I ordered the ribeye strip loin kit. That is for 12 to 18 pound pieces of meat. Each bag is 12 by 24, and you get 3 bags. So with shipping, this ends up being about $30, so it's about $10 a bag. So these aren't super cheap. However, if you think about the fact that you're spending $100 or so on a chunk of meat, percentage-wise, it's really not that much of an increase in cost, and you're obviously getting the awesome benefits of dry aging. So, once in a while, I think it's fun to do this. Step 1 is for me to cut these bags open and drain the blood out, and then when I start putting them into the Umai bag, I'll show you that part of the process. All right. The customer service folks at Umai tell me that it is very important to get your meat in a cryovac bag from the grocery store instead of cut up and in the styrofoam packages, so that you're not introducing bacteria, and also so that the meat hasn't been cleaned up. Because when your butcher puts those in the styrofoam packages and reseals them, he usually cleans them up first, and he removes all the sticky proteins on the outside of the meat, which these bags need those sticky proteins to bond with this meat. So I've put this Umai bag over the top of the store cryovac. Now we're going to flip it, and we're going to pull that store cryovac right off. Now, get these gloves off, pull our Umai bag up, and now our edges are still dry and clean. And if they're not, if you saw any moisture here, you would just go ahead and dry them off and clean them up. But since this is 12 inches, that's 1 inch wider than our sealer. So what we're going to do is we're going to seal off one corner first, then we're going to vacuum pack this. Let me show you how it's going to go. All right, so first comes our 45-degree seal to make this bag the right width. And we're going to seal it twice, just to make sure we got a good seal. Seals for 10 seconds each time. So seal number 1 is done. Seal it again. All right, so you can see our 45-degree seal here. We're checking it to make sure that it's sealed. Got good integrity on that seal. So now we're going to actually crinkle this a little bit. They recommend to crinkle it because if the bag has some crinkles in it, it actually makes it helps your sealer out when it's trying to vacuum pack that meat. So now we take what's called a vac mouse, which is just like a little papery, styrofoamy piece that assists your vacuum sealer in getting this nice and perfect. And we put that in and align it with the edges of our plastic. Maybe I'll move y'all a little closer here. Just make sure it lines up perfectly with your corners. And what you want to do is get that all nice and lined up right across the top of your vacuum seal chamber. All right, so we've got it all lined up pretty well. We're laying over both the sealer bar and the chamber. We're just going to bring our lid down, make sure everything stays in place. And as we seal, once I hit this vacuum and seal button, I'm going to help this baby massage some of this air out. We want to get as much air out as we can so that this bag will actually bond to the meat. Here we go. So that just kept sucking and sucking and sucking. So I actually manually hit seal eventually, because eventually it's going to start pulling some blood and liquid up into your channel, and that's going to mess with your seal. You really want to seal the bag dry, and I could see some blood starting to get pulled up towards that area. I was quite content with the level of vacuuming on this bag already. It looks great to me, and this will easily be able to bond with this meat. So I went ahead and hit seal before we lost the ability to seal well. Just like we did before, I'm going to seal it a second time. We successfully prevented any of this blood from reaching this seal area, which is exactly what we wanted. Now what they recommend doing is doing a second backup seal. All right, here we go. Got our New York strip. My first time ever putting meat into an Umai bag, and I think it went pretty well. It looks pretty tight. It looks like it'll be able to bond. And all that's left to do now is put our little Umai stickers on here that gives us our start date and our target date, and we'll be good to go. Now I'm not going to repeat that whole process on video with the ribeye. But basically the same process, and so I'll show it to you at the end. Now, as I put this prime rib in, one thing I was going to mention, if you're the kind of guy who's a little bit of a germaphobe, which I can be sometimes, I totally understand that, and you usually like to rinse off your meat before you cook it, which I sometimes do and sometimes I don't. Just remember that after 5 weeks, there's going to be a super thick crust on this meat that you're going to have to trim off all the way around. So rinsing is irrelevant in this case. Also, the other important thing is, unlike the New York strip, this ribeye is bone in, which means we're going to have to do some protecting of this bag by wrapping these bones in some parchment paper. Probably shouldn't show you me doing this because I'm not sure the best way to go about this without getting my arm all bloodied up. But basically I'm just sliding a piece of parchment paper all the way down that bone line. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. And that's all you want to do. You just want to make sure that you don't have there's bone there, and then I'm going to get another piece of parchment paper and do these bones up here because you want to make sure that you don't have puncturing going on. Umai also recommends that you don't do this with bone-in meat, which I rebelled a little bit on because I want a bone-in ribeye, and I've seen other guys on YouTube do this with bone-in successfully. I did not want to buy both a boneless New York strip and a boneless ribeye. I really want to cut not only a prime rib roast out of this, but I also want to get some cowboy ribeyes out of it whenever it's all said and done. So I insisted on buying bone-in, and who knows, maybe I'll regret it. Maybe it was foolish to bite that off for my first Umai attempt, but I don't think so. We're going to go with it. That time it did it on its own. It did it much faster, and it might have even gotten a little more air out this time. And it did it in about half the time. And I was able to get that wax paper to stay over the bone, and I even was able to get a tiny little air pocket to stay right above that sharpest bone edge on the end, which is going to greatly increase the likelihood of this not being punctured in the first week. All right, everybody, here's the finished product. Beautiful 13-pound prime rib. Beautiful prime rib. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bones. That sounds about right at 13 pounds. And this here was 11.6 pounds exactly, the New York strip roast. And that too looks beautifully done. They'll both go on racks in the bottom of the fridge. And we'll see you back here in 5-6 weeks. All right, y'all, here it is. It's time for the 15-day update. I was not home for the 1-week update. We were away for the holidays. So it's now been 2 weeks and a day. And here's what we got. So these have been in for 15 days. And I'm going to be very careful with them. You're really not supposed to move these or touch the bags at all. So just by pulling them out of the fridge for this video, I've already put myself at risk a little bit here. My understanding is that these bags are bonding to the meat itself, and so I'm assuming that means they get a little bit brittle and don't want to be touching them or messing with them. So I'm not going to rotate these or flip these around or do anything crazy. I'm just going to show you. You can see the obvious color change from a couple of weeks ago. You can see that obviously here in the video, but at the end of this video I think I'll be putting all of the pictures up from beginning to end, so you'll be able to see that progression as well. The pictures from day 1 and then the pictures that I'll take here in a minute from day 15, and hopefully I'll do this 1 or 2 more times before we get to the end. But this is the New York strip. This is the first one that I bagged up, and I didn't do quite as good a job. You can see a lot of streaks in the bag here, a lot of crinkles. But again, it's not a big deal as long as you have 80% contact, and I have well over 80% contact with the bag there, so not a big deal. But you can tell the meat itself is turning a very deep, dark, purpley red. and the fat is just starting to brown up a little bit, to gray up, and that'll obviously continue on in much greater fashion over the next 21 to 28 days. Still haven't decided yet if I'm going to go 5 or 6 weeks on these. This is the prime rib. I'm really surprised how clean that wax paper still looks. I thought that would soak through within hours after putting that in there, and that would be all bloody and brown. But that's really only happened around the edges here. But same sort of thing going on. You can see the fat has started to brown a little bit. And over here on the meat end, very similar color to what that New York strip looked like over there. So that's the 15-day update. I don't think I'll do this every week because I don't want to move the bags that frequently. So again, hope you're enjoying this and living through the process with me. And if you've never done this yourself, again, I encourage you to try it. It's a lot of fun, even though the anticipation is killing me. All right, y'all remember what these looked like at the beginning? They were bright red, big and tall. A few weeks in, they had obviously started to change, but not significantly. But now here at the 7-week mark, they have definitely changed significantly. They've darkened up in color big time. Let me see if I can get the lighting better for you. And you can see they've grown sort of a crust, a waxy shell on the outside. They've hardened up dramatically. Like, I can't really even pinch these very well. They're so firm. But once we trim off that outside waxy layer, I'm told that these are going to be so tender you could basically push your finger through them. Here's the New York strip roast. This was the prime rib, and with those bones, remember I put the wax paper on to protect the bag from puncturing. As you can see, this New York strip bag, this was the first Umai bag I ever did, and I didn't get nearly as tight on this one, because it was my first attempt, as I did here on the prime rib bag, which is very, very, very tight around this roast. However, this will still be good enough. It was above the 75 to 80% direct contact threshold that you need to use these Umai bags, so it'll still be fine. Anyhow, first of all, let's weigh these babies. If you remember, this one was about 13 pounds when we started. I think this one was like 11 and a half, 11.6 if I remember correctly. So let's get our digital scale out here. And I think these babies are stiff enough where I'm actually going to be able to just set them on the scale sideways without using a pan or anything. So let's check it out and see what they weigh. All right, I think you ought to be able to see that scale pretty clearly. I'm not going to worry about the very minimal tear weight on these plastic bags. It's not going to really make that much of a difference. And we're not too scientific here. And of course, it's going to do it in ounces for me. So let's get to, I believe what that is saying is 8 pounds, 14.9 ounces. So basically 9 pounds. Remember, we started at 11.6 pounds, almost 12 pounds. So this guy has shrunk up about 25%, coming from about 12 pounds down to about 9 pounds. This one was right at 13 pounds. And let's make sure we're not getting any interference there. And I don't know if you can see those numbers or not. Hopefully you can. 10 pounds, 14.6 ounces, so right about 11 pounds. So this guy lost about 2 pounds, or just under 20% of his weight, maybe 15 to 17%, somewhere in there. Doing the math off the top of my head, y'all, so don't be too critical, all right? Cut me some slack. All right, there's nothing left to do for this video but cut into these bad boys and show you what the color looks like, what the texture looks like on the inside of a 49-day bone-in ribeye and a 49-day boneless New York strip. I'm going to cut these from the middle, I think. I think my prime rib is about 7 bones, so I'll take that middle bone as close as I can get to it and then I'll show you what we're going to do with the rest of this meat that I'm not going to use right away. All right, first thing, again, this is my first time ever using Umai dry bags, so let's see how easy it is to get one of these suckers off. It's going to be a little easier on the New York strip, again, because I didn't get quite as good of sealage as I wanted to, so this one will be probably a little easier. But let's just start peeling and see how it goes. Let me take a smell. That is crazy. That smells, it's not super strong, but it definitely has that just hint of funky smell to it. If you watch any dry aging videos of guys that are experienced doing this, or guys that are experienced chefs, or guys that do reviews of restaurants that serve dry aged meat, they describe any dry aged meat that's been over the 4 or 5 week range. The further you go, the funkier it gets. That's the word they use to describe it, and a lot of guys compare it to almost like a blue cheese. Same sort of a thing is going on with your meat. I believe the same sort of molds and bacterias and enzymes are working on the meat, and so it gives it a little bit of what they describe as funkiness. And I can definitely smell that. Just a hint of that, almost like a cheese smell. And it's not off-putting at all, actually. I like blue cheese or Roquefort or any of those. I don't get too crazy with my cheeses, but I like some good blue cheese. And so this having a little bit of a cheese essence to it doesn't put me off at all. Hopefully it doesn't you either. I wouldn't let it go beyond 49 days. As a matter of fact, you know, I was hoping for 28 to 35 like I told you, but that didn't work out because life happens sometimes. So hopefully this one will be just right. Hold that up for you. It is, I'm holding it with one hand back here, and this thing is stiff as a bone. You can see that? There's no flex in it at all. It is just a beautiful looking piece of meat though. Totally stiff. Beautiful New York strip. Can't wait to bust into this. It's leaving absolutely no residue on my gloves. It's a very waxy, very dry, very jerky-like feeling on the outside of this. So let's bust right into the middle of this guy. It's probably going to be hard to cut through. These knuckle sandwich knives are awesome. I'm glad I bought one when I did. I don't know if they still make these or not. Had a hard time finding them a few weeks ago when I was looking for one on the internet. So, oh, that is exactly what I wanted to feel. As soon as I punched through that outer, it feels like probably about a quarter, half inch of jerky texture, it immediately got soft when that knife hit the inside of this. That is exciting. Get that a little bit further forward. And I'm just going to slowly, oh yeah, wow. Once I get through that waxy layer, it is just feels so soft down on the inside. I cannot wait to see this, folks. This has been 7 weeks in the making, and this was my big Christmas present. This was not cheap, even on sale, to buy 25 pounds of rib roast and New York strip. But the things I do for you people, I hope you appreciate it. And by the way, this video series better finally put me over 1,000 subscribers. I've been waiting since June for that. This is looking good, folks. Wow. Remember how dark the outside was? Now compare that. I can do you one better. I'll just pick up the end of this other one, compare them together. Look at that bright red, beautiful meat. Huge fat cap. We'll be trimming that off. Again, this is shrunk up almost 20%. And yeah, you're losing some money there. You're losing some weight. But by the end of this process, this meat is worth 3 or 4 times what it started out being worth. So because this is not a very thick steak, I'm going to cut this probably a full 2 inches thick and make a nice big steak, and we're going to do that on the grill tonight. And again, that will be my next video, is cooking one of these big old New York strips and cooking a nice big old comparable ribeye and doing a taste test. And by the way, I have done a taste test of New York strip versus ribeye several years ago before I had a YouTube channel, because I like both steaks and I wanted to know once and for all, side by side, what are the differences? How do these taste different? And which one do I like better? And I'll try to remember to talk about that experiment when I do this next video. Look at that beautiful, beautiful 1.5 inch New York strip steak. And I can tell you right now, the inside of that is as tender as all get out. So what I'll do is I'll trim all this off. You don't need to see me do that. I'll trim off the thick part of the fat. Look at the marbling on that. There's just fat all throughout. This New York strip is going to be delicious. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to freeze the others whole because we're not going to obviously eat 25 pounds of meat tonight. And what I'm going to, my theory is, if, freezing meat isn't ideal, high quality meat, I hate to freeze it, but, we're going to have 6 months worth of steaks and roasts in the freezer as a result of this. I'm hoping by leaving the rind on and freezing them with the rind on, it will actually help protect them in the freezer. So when I pop them out in a month or 2 or 3 months to cook them, thaw them, and then take the rind off, I'll still have awesome meat that's been protected while in the freezer. I think that's a good strategy to go with, so that's what I'm going to do. Anyhow, let's bust into this ribeye and compare these steaks. This one doesn't smell quite as strong. And again, the New York strip wasn't that strong, but it had a definite hint of like a cheese smell to it. I'm not getting that on the prime rib as much. I'm getting really no smell at all on the prime rib. But it still is very stiff and very waxy. And that bag came right off. I'm a little worried about this wax paper, or parchment paper, I think is what we used, if I remember right. Nope. That's coming off easy too. No big deal. See if this piece comes off for us. This one looks like it is well adhered. Oh. All right. Look at this beauty. Again, holding it with one hand, no flex whatsoever. This thing is firm and solid. Show you all 6 sides of it before I cut into it. There's those 7 bones. There's the fat cap side. Sat on our rack the whole time, so it has that grid pattern on it. And this is what was the top side in the fridge, but obviously for roasting, most people put the bones down. So what I'm going to try and do is cut right between these bones and leave that as a prime rib roast. And then we'll make a steak right next to it right here. So let's see if I hit any bones. Man, these knives are awesome. If you can get your hands on one of the original Guy Fieri knuckle sandwich knives, it's the best knife I have ever owned. No flex in that bad boy at all, and it's so easy to keep them sharp. They are such good quality steel. And that was easy to cut. Let's see, it feels like a tiny little bit is connected somewhere along the line. Oh, baby. All right, remember, that's the dark outside. Here's the beautiful inside. Look at that, baby. Oh. And on this one, much less of a fat cap, much more of a meat ratio. Oh, that meat is tacky. Just look at, if I can hold this still, just look at the movement on that. This feels like Jello. I am not going to do the finger test because I don't want to punch a hole 3 inches through a prime ribeye, but I guarantee you I could easily put my index finger right through the middle of this thing right now. I mean, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's just moving around like jelly. That's going to be awesome. Let me cut a huge steak out of that right now, as big as I can make it, all the way up against these other two bones right here. That is going to be an awesome ribeye. Oh. And I made sure I got the full 2 inches on this one, unlike that New York strip that I probably only went 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches on. I can guarantee you this one is 2 inches thick, baby. By itself, this is a mini prime rib roast here. Can't tell where we're sticking up. There we go. Look at this beauty. Wow. Here's my fist. Here's the thickness of that steak. Compared to the New York strip, oh yeah. Who's your daddy? Now that will not affect the taste test, obviously. We're just talking about a size difference here of 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. But both of these feel amazing. You can compare the marbling on the ribeye here. New York strip, obviously the ribeye is going to have a little more fat in it. I believe these were both choice. So once again, this will be our big prime ribeye roast. This big 3-bone section. And that one there, let me just weigh it for you. That 3-bone prime rib, 5 pounds, 3 ounces. This New York strip steak that we're going to cook tonight, exactly 1 pound. This ribeye steak that we're going to cook tonight, nearly 2 pounds, 1 pound and 14.5 ounces. So, wow, this is going to be awesome. I will probably make steaks out of this smaller end, but again, I'm going to leave it whole for the purposes of the freezer to protect this meat more. And that section is nearly 4 pounds, just under 4 pounds. So after we cook our New York strip tonight and our ribeye, we're still going to have 2 big sections of ribeye here to either, this one will be our roast for our taste test video. This one will probably be steaks over the course of the spring and summer. And then we have our 2 big New York strip sections back here. One of them I'll use to compare to our prime rib roast when we do that video, and one of them I'll make into steaks when the time comes. Anyhow, we got just under 4 pounds of New York strip on that section, just over 4 pounds on that section, and I think this prime rib was just under 4 pounds if I remember correctly. No, that was 5.5 pounds. So when we do that video, we'll have to do that comparison against the larger New York strip roast. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed watching this comparison video. I sure had a lot of fun making it. Stay tuned again because very soon here we're going to be coming out with that head-to-head ribeye steak versus New York strip steak 49-day dry-aged taste test. And then hopefully within a few weeks we'll get around to doing that prime rib versus New York strip roast 49-day dry-aged head-to-head comparison as well. So this will be a 3-part series. As always, I make folders on my YouTube channel, so you can go and look up my videos by topic. You can see all my videos that I've done on my LSG smoker in one spot, all my Weber Smoky Mountain videos in one spot, all my beef videos in one spot, all my pork videos in one spot. So I will put these in a dry-aged folder, and that way all 3 of these videos will be easy for you to access and check out. I appreciate you watching Texas 2.5. I appreciate you helping me get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. That's a big milestone. And hey, we'll catch you next time when we do this steak comparison video. See you soon.